that might be a situation where I have to test something, and that's a good idea right there. This one you could put it as a ground connection, so you can put that on like the, you know, like under the hood, and then you just crank this down, and it's got a tiny pin in it that pokes through the paint that can kind of like get a connection. So if you need that under a hood, that actually works fairly decent. I mean, you can't jumpstart a car off of that or anything, but not that I've tried. But you can definitely get a good ground if you're just needing to get an electrical signal. Like, it actually works pretty well. And this one, if you're under the dash on a car, need power and ground sources, like that's a good one. It's going straight to the battery or fuse box, so like that's a good power and ground source that you can get. You can clamp onto these, and it'll light up and let you know that that's working too. So also good for checking cigarette lighter ports. You can just go pop it in and see if it works. And I used to just use a car charging port to see that, but I mean, that works too. And a lot of times if I'm in the dash doing stuff like that, or, you know, in the interior, that's where I'm working today, I'll probably need that plugged in for the day. And then I just have all these little banana jacks that kind of like have clamps and little alligator clips. These came with a set for those, for these. And I just kind of throw them in here because they're helpful. I've used them a couple of times. So, you know, really nice to have there. And then I have my, you know, my ratcheting wrench drawer, my big pliers. I got this, you know, sometimes you need to hold the crank pulley and there's nothing there to do that. That boy works. Toyotas, sometimes you need that. I have my digital torque wrench. I don't have a digital 1/4 inch one. I don't think I've ever needed that. This one's pretty solid, and then also this one is like, whenever I was working at Mercedes, I used Newton meters. So I'm used to using Newton meters to tighten everything. So my digital ones, it's nice because they're in Newton meters. Like you can change it to whatever you want it to be. So that's a unit I like using best. And this one's already in Newton meters, and that's typically when I'm needing to do like, you know, like 5.5 Newton meters. Like I needed this for like Mercedes, so or it's like 7 Newton meters or 8 Newton meters for an oil pan or something. And just like, okay, like, but you end up needing that. So that was one of the first things I bought there. Was I bought a whole set of torque wrenches, and then when I was working here, like keeping them calibrated is an issue. Like I work on a lot of stuff, and I have like high use on them, so I need them to like stay calibrated. And these, I was told, like do a lot better job of that. I still send them in to get them calibrated every year, but I don't think I need to as much as those. Those I trusted less to leave them calibrated. And then other people borrow them, and they can't really tell when they're over-tightening stuff with it because maybe they've never used a torque wrench before. But pretty much if you over-torque a couple of times with it, like, you've already thrown it out of spec by a little bit. Like, this, I think I got, my brother had it, and it was just with his extra tools. And it was just in his toolbox, and it was broken. And I lost my, my Napa one. But this one had an extending handle, and that basically broke, like, the second time I used it. But the wrench is pretty solid, and I like these grooves, actually. It feels nice, so, and it's solid. And, I mean, it's thick, but basically if I'm using this, it's just for, like, oil filter caps or something. But it's beefy. It works. Like, then I got my little ratchets that I use for all the time. Like I said, I use 1/4 inch, and I like that one because it's palm size, and I can really break and tighten stuff really, really well with that. And the teeth on these are so nice, and all the Snap-on ones. They're, like, so fine-pointed that I just get a lot more like reach every single time. And I've used other people's wrenches, and they're nice, but like I don't think that their ergonomics are as good, like, or at least for me, at least the way I've used them. Like I pretty much, whenever I left school, I had a Snap-on like scholarship, so I had some extra tools that I was able to buy. I mean, I basically got like it as an award for something, so I was able to, you know, use some Snap-on stuff from the start, and like once you do that, you get familiar with it, and then everything else feels like it sucks. So it's like but they genuinely are like really good. And then this, I like that you can kind of loosen it and tighten it depending like on how floppy you need this. Sometimes they can get a little loose, but you can really crank down on them. And he's had no problem with, like, repairing them anytime they've broken, so that's really nice. Typically, if I have one that's flopping around, or the what's it called, or the ratcheting part inside of here, like maybe it'll skip a tooth one time, and I'll just let them know, and I basically get it repaired like that day. So it's like, hey, something might be going on here. But even when they break, they don't seem to break in a way that's like going to stop you from using it. It's just going to lose its like edge kind of thing. And so when it stops like working, 100%, just the next time the Snap-on guys, they're like, hey, can you fix that real quick? And you got it working back to new, and it didn't take you any time. So it's really nice. And then I got my long one over here that I use like pretty often. It's really nice. I like this rubber handle. A lot of people don't like the rubber handle ones. They want like straight metal ones, but that's not really my style. I like the grippy. I like to be comfortable while I'm working, and those seem to just to find a job. Like I'm not usually sticking my ratchets in places where they don't need to be. Like I have other tools for that, so I don't really need to do that. Then I got this one from Cornwall. It was discontinued for a while, but I think they brought it back. But basically my flex head was broken for the longest time. And I didn't have a Cornwall dealer, so I had to wait until this one got here. And basically, like, I was like, before I buy anything, I have like 2 or 3 broken tools from Cornwall. I have not seen Cornwall in 2 years, so I would like that stuff fixed before I buy anything. Like, and he happily fixed it. It took like a week, but he got it resolved pretty quick, and I was like, that's good. Oh yeah, these are also the 100-year anniversary ones, which was like, I felt like the perfect time to upgrade. It's like, oh cool, I got a special edition one. And I got my oil filter wrenches, and as you can see, I have magnets on here to keep these all in place. I got my little rubber mallet, great for just popping in stuff, like checking for noises and things. That's really good. Fits in a lot of places, and you can really wail on it with these, and they don't seem to have an issue. I got my regular hammer. I got these on a promotion with my pry bars, and that's why it's orange, but I wish I would have picked red because it would have matched the rest of my stuff. But it is kind of nice though, because it's like a very clear indicator of which hammer I'm looking at when they're like laying around on the floor on a lift or like in my toolbox. If I see the orange one, that's a hammer, and when I see the red one, that's me mallet. And it's just, you just know a lot faster. My oil filter wrenches, and then I just change the sizes I need them. Like a lot of times one size fits for like most of the cars, and then occasionally you change it. And for me, that's a fine enough thing to have to do. But the little pin thing fell out. That's what you get for buying cheap stuff. The little pin fell out, so I've been using just like a cotter pin to kind of do that. But one day I'll fix it. I got this at a Snap-on bucket sale. It's basically like a scraper for gaskets, and you just change these blades out, but they stay really sharp, and they're super good at just getting in there. But man, you can't use them on like aluminum or like any kind of soft metal or metal you don't need scrapes on, like nitride coated metals, like for like a lot of German vehicles like BMW, Mercedes definitely don't scrape anything. Like that's not good for that. But this is good for like a metal oil pan, like a steel one from like an old Ford. Like that thing's gonna peel it off. Like plastic, or I'm sorry, those paper gaskets that get stuck, it's great for that. So those two have their job, but those are just some generic, like, I just need to get a bunch of gunk off of here real fast, like dried coolant. Before we go to that drawer, I forgot to go over my side rack over here. I do have a long copper style magnet, the one that like holds its position. Again, I like to make things nice and convenient and easy to get out. Jesus. You'll just have to believe me on that one. But it's just basically it'll hold its position on the magnet if you need to get in a real weird spot. I don't use it a lot, but it's helpful. Got my little magic grip things. I use those all the time. Super convenient. And then you saw my torque sockets, and then I have my e-torque sockets, and then I have basically these triple splined ones. And I have the normal one, but actually whenever I'm using this, it's a lot on like Volkswagens or doing alignments, and you need like that specific size, but you need it to be compact, and that seems to work. My only beef is it's a 1/4 inch, so like sometimes I need to, like this, for example, this Volkswagen like dual mass flywheel, it takes that size, and I'm like, I can't use a fucking 1/4 inch to put on a fucking flywheel to a car. Like, how am I supposed to torque that? Like, and so I got to get this one. But I mean, it's not super tight, but it is tight enough that I can't use that. And then these are like, I don't know why they came with security ones. They were supposed to be normal, but I haven't really had to use them in a situation where I think I needed to put a lot of torque, which is weird. But I think it's mainly you just don't use these sizes a lot. Oh, there's that freaking screw. I went to that clamp. I thought I lost it and was going to have to replace it. Yeah, and then I have my small plastic clip removers and my large plastic clip removers. I remove stuff all the time. And then over here, I cut out a special slot so I could have my special belt tool. Basically, you can grab the belt, get in a really tight spot, and just slip it on over that pulley. Or, you know, sometimes you can just grab stuff with it, which is kind of cool. And then I have my air hose reel, and then I have 2 different styles of those long reach hose clamp pliers that are the ratcheting ones. These 2 are different sizes. Like this one's beefier, so it's good for like really heavy duty ones and where space isn't necessarily a problem. And this one's really good for like, you know, you don't have a lot of space there. It's like behind something and you need to just kind of like finagle it. That's a good one. This one's good for like if you just need a real good solid, like, get that hose clamp off. And then my tire inflating gauge. And then we go to this drawer. And basically I have my crow's feet. Then these, I guess, line nut crow's feet. But I use these a lot more. They're honestly, I don't ever see a reason not to use them. You get more leverage and they're just better. This is if you're installing zip ties, you can just, and it'll just basically cut it for you. And it'll pull it. So it'll pull it and cut it for you. Which is really nice if you just want a straight across cut on there and you don't feel like doing it with a some wire cutters, which you're never going to get it as straight as that thing. And you have them. Yep. Then I got my wire cleaning stuff. I have these special bits from Cornwell. Basically, this is if you're about to be screwed by a thing that just had a stud just breaking off. This will like start the thing for you to kind of get that process going, and it'll just completely flatten the surface of that broken stud so that you can start drilling in there and make sure you get it in the center. It's been really great. It's a really good metal. I've used it a lot and it seems to stay sharp, so I don't know how that's happening, but I have my battery cleaner. I clean a lot of batteries. I need good connections, and that's super important. I go through like probably 2 or 3 of those like a month. I clean a lot of batteries. No, I'm exaggerating. They're shitty, so they break often. Then I have these small screwdrivers, which I don't want them up there because I don't use them that much, but I do need them in my toolbox, like accessible. Spark plug gap checker, then a tire core removal tool. Then this is a hood shock holder, so if the hood shocks break on a car, you can basically just hold it up anyway. Really awesome. Have my digital tire inflation gauge, some touch-up paint, black, red. Mostly for marking timing chains, but black is a surprisingly used touch-up paint if you're under a hood and you accidentally scratch some, nice looking panel. Luckily we're with a body shop, so if we do ever get on the outside, they've touched up cars and like it looks like nothing ever happened. Like they're real professionals. Like I've never had a paint crew that's actually like competent at repairing something and it looks like how it's supposed to. Like they send cars over here and I need to like inspect the wiring and the car looks like nothing ever happened to it. It's amazing. Like I have no fucking clue how they're doing that. But man, I love that we're working with some professionals. Got my, just my box cutter. I use that for opening harnesses sometimes. Just cutting generic stuff. These blades are pretty cheap, so it's nice to have something you just kind of need to, you can dull the blade. And then I have another spark plug gap checker. I actually had one from Cornwell, and I replaced it with a snap-on one because I had remembered that there was a defect in it, like on all of them, where it's like pressed out and it's got that little divot. But I use like millimeters to measure my spark plugs all the time, so it like catches on that. And you can like sometimes, I've never broken the tip off like a spark plug, but it's gonna happen with that thing being there. Then I have my starting one, and I have an extra screwdriver, and this is for checking brake pads. Without taking the wheel off, you just stick it in there and then give it a little twist, and it'll tell you how much that's going by moving this. So it's pretty helpful. It makes my job a lot more accurate. Then I actually do use brake test strips just to test the brake fluid. If it's dirty, I'm pretty much recommending it. It needs to be replaced every 2 years. Like that's how they did it in Mercedes, and I kind of believe them on that because a lot of ABS pumps fail, and I feel like if your fluid was good, it wouldn't happen as often. Like Mercedes had that recall for a bunch of theirs, having like electronic problems, basically giving codes that weren't there. But that was a really high pressure brake system too. That one was like, they told us whenever we were having to do brake repairs on that, like, do not stick your hand in there if you have not made sure that SP system is disabled. Do not get your hand anywhere near that caliper, because it might accidentally, the car wakes up or something, and the first thing it does is it tightens up the brake pads so that it can basically like lightly apply them while the driver is driving, and it'll kind of like wipe off any rust or like water or moisture or anything like that. Like, it gets them hot quickly so that they can be used like at the temperature they're supposed to. And if you get your hand anywhere near that while that thing accidentally wakes up, like, the first thing it does is going to clamp down on the brakes. And it's like, if your hand's there, like, it's like you're not getting those fingers back. Like, it is going to crush them. Like, yeah, because it's going to be looking for a stopping point against the rotor, and it's just going to go right through your fucking fingers. Like it's meant to grip metal against metal. Like, your fingers are not going to stop it. Like, your bones might, but you're going to be having a tough day. So that was a different type of braking system. But I think for generic cars, 2 years probably is pretty good to keep those systems working, especially on like GM products where ABS pumps are not super reliable, or like Nissans, their brake fluid tends to wear out a lot faster, which I've noticed. But yeah, so I do test. If I see it dirty, I'm pretty much recommending it, but that just gives me an extra thing that's like, hey, also some sort of test told you that is also bad. Like, really you want the water detection one, but I had an electronic one in here, and the whole plastic housing just started cracking and breaking apart. Like, it still worked, I still used it while it was broken for a second, but it was just to the point where it was too broken. I tossed it, and I need to get another one, but the one on the truck was $80, and I was like, you're out of your mind. That is a $20 item. Like, then I have my paint pens that I use for marking a lot of stuff. It's really helpful on that too. Then I have an O2 socket removal tool. This one's the slimmest, strongest, beefiest one I've had, and it works really well. I've never had a problem breaking anything loose. It's got enough weight to it that it's able to actually like break almost every spark plug loose without an issue, without stripping it out or anything like that. Like, because once you get an O2, like, once you get that socket port stripped out, you're gonna have a tough time getting that out. Like, gotta use the pipe wrenches and stuff, or just like, I don't want to be you when that happens. Like, if it's cross-threaded too, you're having a real bad day. Like, if you had a chance at removing that before, it's not. And then this is for stretch belts. Basically just two tools. One of them I have it cut off for like GM stuff. God, I work on a lot of GMs. And then that one has both of the ends on it, but one was so it would fit in a specific spot, and I don't even think it worked well. It just worked better than not having it. And I haven't found a tool that works. Like, if you know one that works, you know which belt I'm talking about, send me a link to that, because I need to buy that. Then I had these that I had at Mercedes. I would oftentimes get in the dash stuff where I would need these Torx bit sizes, and I didn't want to grab my screwdrivers, so I would just have these on hand, and the ball style made them able to fit in a lot more places, and that was really nice. And I still keep them in here because I still work on some Mercedes stuff, and like a lot of European cars use the Torx style, so like, and a lot of modern cars are doing that too, so it's become more and more handy, like, as I've had them. And then I got my regular I don't ever use these. I don't trust them. I don't think I've ever tried to use them. It's honestly, if somebody asks if I have any, that's why they're here. And then that's to put on like valve cover gaskets and like oil pan gaskets. You just make sure it's all sealed in, like in the grooves. Like, that's the perfect way to do it. It works so well. It's so easy. You just go so fast, and you don't even need to double check it. Like, used to, what I would do is I would just get the small rubber mallet and go all the way around, but I don't do that anymore because I just have that, and that handles the job 100% of the time, and it's a lot faster. And I have some Brillo pads here. Like, I have an extra pack of different sizes, or I just cut them up. And then I don't use this often, but I got it, and I'm trying to put it in here to get used. But basically, you can use this to measure the size of a bolt, or whatever size, like, head of something. Like, you can tell the size before you go and grab your wrench, and then you can just go grab the correct size. Like, maybe I'm helping somebody else out, but what size is that? Boom, let me go grab my shit. Like, and yeah, so save me a couple times an extra trip, or bring in like 3 wrenches. especially for alignments. You can just go back there and just measure it real quick. Then this is just an extra, you know, like Teflon, plastic razor blades. There is my brush. That actually needs to be out here next to that. Oh, no, maybe not next to that. I don't want to put there. Yeah, that's good. This is really, really good stuff. This is a really high temperature grease. And I have just found that putting this in there, it lasts a lot longer than other stuff. I'll get in there on brakes that have been there for like 2 years, and I go to like service some stuff and I have to take the brakes out. And a lot of times whenever I'm taking the, like if I have to take the rotor off, I'll just go ahead and service your brake, at least on that side. Like whatever I removed, I'll just go ahead and clean it, put new grease on it. And sometimes I've done brakes in the past and I've like came back 2 years later and the stuff was still fresh on there, like still doing its job correctly. And this is one I was using before, which was a higher temperature, and it worked really well for slide pins. Like it seemed to really stick on them and give it a good coating. And if it got old, it got thick, but it was like a thicker grease. It's almost like a bearing style grease. So it was like really, really good for slide pins because the temperature didn't seem to hurt it that much versus like other cheaper ones I've used. And this is what we got recommended by our brakes person. Came over from Techstar and gave us a presentation. It was basically like, you need to be using that one. And we did it, and honestly, it's been super great. And then I keep like extra little cutoff wheels and, you know, some extra tape. And then there's spark plug grease. And this grease works really, really well. It stays sticky, like keeps the boots like from sticking to the spark plugs like 100%. And it's got this like really fine tip. And then you can use this outside part to just kind of smear the grease inside of the coil boot, like just really fast and evenly, and you just kind of rotate it, and it works well like that. And this stuff lasts a long time. You don't need a lot of it to make it like really greased it up and make it soft and malleable, and still some leftover grease to keep on lubricating that. And it holds really well up to temperatures too. Like it seems to stay on there for a long time and make sure that those boots don't stick, like, which is really, really helpful. I'm running out, so I'm gonna need to buy some more from Mercedes. I can't get that anywhere else. I'm probably gonna see if FCP Euro has it or something. And then I have my oil filter wrenches, or my little caps for that, for cartridge filters. I didn't show you up here. I basically have a like, what is that, 5/8 size for those bits, and then I have the 1/4 inch one. And I have this VIM kit with stubby bits. They're just real tiny. They're like half bits. But they're meant for really tight spaces, and I do a lot of work like where I'm just like, let me just get in there and make a real like I don't like taking parts off, so this is my lazy way to approach it. But I feel like it's so much more efficient. Like it's like we're gonna be doing minimally invasive surgery here. We don't want to be like taking stuff off here. Like this stuff is fragile, like it's gonna lengthen the repair. So if I could just get it out, like we could save a lot of money by just not messing with the stuff like that. Like typically it's going to be around the same time, and I'm going to be doing the same thing. So like I said, with wire repairs, stuff like that, like I am fine sneaking something out in a clever way rather than like take a bunch of panels off and do that. If I can avoid it, I will do that. And this can sometimes help, because sometimes the thing that's stopping you from taking the component off isn't like that object needs to be removed to get to this. It's that like the bolt is there and you have this much room, but like if you take the bolt out completely, it'll have enough room to come out. You get it with a magnet, but there's not enough room there for you to stick a whole like Torx bit in it and a ratchet part. Like you're just, all your real estate is taken up just by the tool. So like if you could sneak it down to like that, you can get into some real good situations where you can get stuff out that like you were not supposed to do it like that. Like, but good for you. Takes a little bit more patience, but it works so well. Yeah, and then I have this basically spark checking tool. Yeah, you can just basically check and see if there's spark. And sometimes this is the fastest way to do it without grabbing a scope or doing anything like that. This will handle that job pretty quickly. I basically just saw an indicator that my phone was gonna die, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna need to handle that. Got this power supply with like headphones from Matco. It's okay. It's like the power bank's good, but the headphones are in the opposite direction if you're popping it up like that, which is what I would indicate from the lettering being like this, like that you would use it like that. But this one goes on that ear and this one goes on that ear, so it's kind of not intuitive like that. Like I wish it would pop out that way. I don't know, that would be the same thing. We'll just switch the ears, like the positioning. And but the charging works great. It does fast charging, which I was really impressed by that, and the battery life is really good on it. And then it'll charge your headphones, which I think all the Bluetooth headphones do that, but it's also a power bank, so it'll charge them a couple of times, which is nice. And then I have this drill pump thing to move fluids around. I'll use that a lot for transmission services. Then I have these brake bleeding tools. Basically, I have a rubber gasket inside of there that will seal onto it, and with this, like, it's 12 point, but these grip on so well. I think VIM makes these too. Yeah. They grip on extremely well and will almost always break them loose. And then you can just move your wrench up, rotate it, and then break it loose again, because a lot of times you're in compact spaces, and you can put a hose on here, and I use a vacuum tool, so I basically just suck the fluid out like that. Like, I don't know why people are bleeding brakes the normal way. Like, that is the way to do it. Use those, use a vacuum bleeder, and you can basically get air out of lines. Like, within 10 minutes, you should be able to have the brakes bled completely. Like, you shouldn't have a problem. Like, I don't know what is wrong with these people not being able to do that, but, like, I tell them, use my tools, use the same thing, and they can't seem to do it. And I'm like, it's a pretty simple task. Like, I don't know what's going on here. The brake pad spreading tools, and then oil filter wrench, and then I have my Mercedes oil filter wrench, and then this is for diesel Mercedes, which I think is another decorative thing I just have in here. I don't need that, but it does fit on some BMWs, which is cool. So I've actually used it a couple of times. And then a Toyota oil filter wrench, because I worked at Toyota. And honestly, those are one of the only ones where I need one of those caps right off the bat. And I just got these. They have a 27, I have a 24 for like oil or coolant pressure sensors. And they work really, really well. I used to use these long ones, and I could do like Chevy oil pressure sensors really fast. But this has like changed the game. That made it a lot easier. They have 2 C-clamps. I use those for just clamping brake calipers or doing something like when I need like a lot of leverage or something, or I don't know, just pull 2 things together. They work great. Then I have these Stubby ratcheting wrenches, which are awesome, and then I just put my picks in between them to kind of save as much space as possible. I like to, like, I worked in a lot of, like, I know there's big toolboxes here now, but I used to work, like, my toolboxes get fucking worked to death. Like, this one was upgraded from my roll cart because my little roll cart, I bought 2 roll carts because I couldn't handle one roll cart enough of my stuff, and so I had 2 of them, and then that one got too overloaded, and I got this one, and this one surprisingly holds like so much more room than those, and I was able to like kind of fully optimize it the way I wanted to. Here's all my guns. I got my 1/2-inch one, my 1/4-inch, 3/8 electric long neck. I like the long neck ones. The Stub, what is it? The Brute. That's the Stubby ones. They move at a slower speed, but they have some torque on them. I actually didn't like them because they like bust your knuckles. They just when they tighten, they're gonna knock it tight. But if your hand's in the way, like, and it happened too often. I was like, I don't want that. Like, I used it for a little while. Like, he asked me if I wanted to use that one and see if I liked it, and I ended up going like, no, I don't like it. I'm sorry. I've never demoed a tool and given it back, but I was like, the tool works great, but I can't handle that. And then I have this angled cordless drill. I do use that to drill out studs sometimes, but honestly, the thing I mainly use it for is if I'm doing like a tune-up, I can just stick basically that extension onto the end of it, and then just put it at the lowest setting, like a 1 and 1 here, and I can put in spark plugs like that really quickly, and then I can just torque them right after. So really awesome. You can just do that super quick, and then you just torque them. If you're really sensitive about torquing spark plugs, like I am, I really think you should. You're going to get the most performance